In Tamworth, the country has come to town. The crowds moving between the Peel Street buskers can hear both types of music, country and western. Many of the visitors are on song with a trend in Australian politics.
Are you one of these now 18 to 20% of people who are considering voting One Nation?
Yeah, well, I don't know if they're going to stand a candidate in my electorate, but I would definitely consider it, yes.
Steve Brown is here from Bridgewater, Victoria, to watch his son Tom perform. He's also a Conservative voter who's grown frustrated with the coalition.
The net zero thing, I feel like they've got this agenda that they're just going to send us broke at all costs for no reason. It's still a massive voter base in the middle, and I think the Liberal Party's gone left of the middle. And I think One Nation and they're filling the void.
Chris is from Melbourne.
Normally I'm Liberal.
Right. And are you considering voting for One Nation?
I'm thinking about it very seriously.
And why?
Well, I think there's too much division in the Liberal Party at the moment.
Since Pauline Hanson re-entered Parliament in 2016, One Nation's primary vote has been slowly rising, from 6% at the last election to 18%. According to polling firm Resolve, its highest ever. A separate news poll last week put One Nation's primary vote even higher at 22%, surpassing the coalition for the first time.
In the first 6 months, they took it pretty much from the coalition and their older base. More recently, they've started taking that from Labor as well, so they're hoovering up vote from both major parties.
Hasluck's vision was a single society.
Pauline Hanson's positions haven't changed much since her maiden speech to Parliament in 1996. Protection of local industry, a disdain for political correctness, and, of course, reduced immigration.
I and most Australians want our immigration policy radically reviewed and that of multiculturalism abolished.
Yeah.
I believe we are in danger of being swamped by Asians.
And it is about Islam. It is about the people that we brought into the country. They're not people compatible and suitable for this country.
Miss Hanson's been on the same message for the last 20, 30 years, and it's starting to resonate with people because Liberal being so close to Labor and they're dragging the Nationals further and further to the left, whether willingly or otherwise.
New England farmer Steve Coxhead was the chairman of the Tamworth National Party branch, until October, when he and much of the branch shifted to One Nation.
Well, I like to put it that I didn't leave the Nationals left me.
He's disdainful of the climate policy of the federal Nationals leader, David Littleproud.
He's not listening to his membership, and that's why, in New South Wales in particular, the New South Wales Nationals are bleeding members, and I believe that One Nation are listening to people, and they have mainstream Australia's best interests at heart, and they are best placed to represent my interests, and I believe a lot of regional people are feeling the same.
The guillotine, which is when you have to vote.
The Nationals' reputation took another battering last week when it split from the coalition. As it imploded, 7:30 was in Tamworth with the party's former leader, professing sorrow at the schism as only he can.
This is more marriages than a weekend at the Gold Coast.
Barnaby Joyce's decision to defect to One Nation in December looks prescient. Is today, the mess in the coalition, a good day for One Nation?
Yeah, it's almost like I believe they're on a recruitment drive for the One Nation. It's just chaotic, and is chaotic by their own design.
Barnaby Joyce says he followed his supporters.
I had basically almost branches leave and join up and make One Nation branches. That was happening long before I was joined One Nation, so it's a wave and I was part of it and I wasn't the creation of it.
What in particular is driving it?
A malaise, a sense of frustration, an overemphasis on climate change as opposed to costs of living, a reluctance to firmly deal with immigration, and by so doing bring problems in and push up, such things as housing prices.
Peel Street is with Barnaby Joyce.
Thank you for what you do.
I try my very best.
Good for the country.
How are we going with the gun thing?
Yeah, the gun thing has really peed me off. No one should impinge on our rights to have a firearm. We are not the criminals. We did not murder those poor people at Bondi Beach.
Oh, I just thanked him for hopefully going to save our generation, because I know at the moment our country's been run by a bunch of idiots.
Here in Tamworth, support for One Nation doesn't feel like a passing fad, one that'll rise and fall from the charts like a one-hit wonder. The convictions here are deeply held that the major political parties are ignoring the most basic concerns, like crumbling services and the rising cost of homes. Issues that for many voters are directly linked to too much immigration.
Thank you so much.
One Nation is likely to win more Senate spots in 2028. But even if the party's polling numbers hold up, could it become a force in the House of Representatives?
Even if One Nation get 30-40% primary vote in a particular electorate, they require the preferences of another party to get them over the line, to get them over 50%. And there's currently no indication that the major parties are going to preference them to get them over the line. So it's very, very difficult to see One Nation getting more than a handful of seats.
The party, in a sense, is in the delicious position of being able to articulate all the problems without having to solve any of them.
That's a case of if we get the vote, we get the chance, don't we? And I can tell you right now, I'd say you take immigration, I'd say, look, you're going about it all the wrong way. Build the houses, build the schools, build the roads, build the dams, and then talk about how many people that you think you can absorb.
This will be the last stand for Barnaby Joyce as the member for New England.
How are you?
Good. You're doing a great job, mate.
We need Pauline.
Darling, how are you?
Good to see you. Well done.
But he's a stayer. Well, politically at least.
People have been very good to me, and I can't drink them all. Otherwise, I find another planter box.
At the next election, he'll stand in the Senate for One Nation.
Yeah, of course. My pleasure.
Thank you very much for joining Pauline. Now keep doing the good work, all right?
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Well, as voters increasingly embrace One Nation on the Conservative side, the Liberal and National parties continue to nurse the bruises from last week's coalition split. 7:30's political editor Jacob Grieber joins me now. Jacob, let's start with the Liberals. There was last week after the split a lot of fevered speculation about Susan Lee being rolled imminently. What's the state of play now?
Oh, you'd have to characterise it as a bit of a suspended moment this week, these few days leading up to next week. There's a lot of dry tinder around, politically speaking, inside the Liberal Party. No question about that. There is a view, even among moderates, that her days are numbered. It's just a question of how many more are left. There is an argument that she should be given more time, but there's also a view that the way those polls are going and that effect from One Nation that we just saw in Adam's piece shows the way the pressure is mounting on her for a circuit breaker. So it's likely that next week will be a very lively week on that question. The two people to watch closely are clearly Angus Taylor and Andrew Hastie. They're both from the right of the party. If they can come together to an agreement, and there's definitely the prospect of that happening by, if not over the weekend, then the right's unified, then it can mount a challenge. And then it's very much on.
It's interesting though, I mean, the two candidates you mentioned there, Angus Taylor, Andrew Hastie, both on the right of the party, and as Adam's piece just showed us, that pressure is there from One Nation on the right. But let's not forget, they also lost the last two elections, and historic defeat last year by losing, seats in the centre and votes in the centre and those Teal seats, of course. Is there much discussion you're picking up within the Liberal Party right now about the direction they want the party to go in, who they want to represent and appeal to? Or is this, at the moment, still more about personalities?
Look, there is a blend, but it is much more about the personalities, who's got the ticker, who's got the experience, who can rally the base, who can excite voters, who can connect with voters, because that's what's missing at the moment. That's why they're in this state in the polls. And so there's a very active debate about who's best placed to do that, and there are plenty of views and counter views. The other question, of course, as you alluded to, is what on earth does the Liberal Party stand for in 2026 and in 2028 when the next election is likely? And that's a much tougher question. Is it about chasing one nation and trying to out one nation, or is it indeed about building a very broad coalition that appeals to a broader set of voters? That's a very lively debate. But you do get the impression, David, that at this point, they're sort of arguing about who the CEO should be of this company, but no one's having a debate about what on earth this company does, or are the products it sells even relevant anymore? That's a much bigger question.
What about the coalition itself, Jacob? Is there any effort amongst any of them at the moment to try and repair the partnership, to come back together, or are we looking at a more permanent or at least a longer lasting split?
Look, it would seem weird to now come back so quickly. I think people would question the credibility of that. That'd be the second, what's the phrase, remarrying after a divorce within 9 months. I think people would be scratching their heads about how real that is. But that said, there is a definite push from a relatively small group to try and bring the band back together. Dan Tehan in particular is arguing that is essential for the right-hand side of the political ledger to have any hope at the next election, and he's mounting the argument that needs to happen. It is notable, David, that both David Littleproud and Susan Lee have not yet announced their shadow cabinet positions, the respective ones that they would have, and that's an open question, because the moment you do that, you really do entrench the split. It becomes much harder after that point, and so we're watching for both of those to make those announcements, and they've pushed them back at this stage.
No, it's a good point. Just finally, Jacob, on the other side of politics, while all of this is going on the Conservative side, what is the government up to this week?
That's such a quaint point you make about the government actually being relevant. Who are they? So they've got a very nervous eye on tomorrow's inflation data. That will be causing them some headaches, especially if it results in a rate hike next week. And then you've got really a much bigger, much more mundane government issue in this health agreement that the Prime Minister has indicated he wants to do with the states on Friday. The budget sums are truly astronomical. The states are not happy with the offer that the Commonwealth has put on the table. It's about funding both hospitals, aged care and the NDIS. If they can't land this, that is bad news for the federal budget in May, because they need to get a control on some of these spending pressures, and getting a deal with the states is really the only way to do it. And once this week is over, there's not a lot of time left, because South Australia goes into caretaker mode, and then you're just back into rolling ad hoc deals.
Jacob Grieber, thank you.
Thanks, David.